So, oh, it started recording. Oh, okay. I'm not ready. Ground look okay? Do I sound okay? I don't know. We're going to find out at the end, but here we are. Anyway, hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Talking Throttle with me, Alex. There's a lot of mixed reviews about this weekend's race, but you know me, I'm always going to give my 2 pence on it. So stay with me while we walk through what happened at the Italian Grand Prix. And I hope you like the music I've added into the intro, because I thought it was kind of cool. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 stamattina. This week's race recap is actually going to be shorter than I think the one I did last week. As much as people are like, oh, it was a boring race, like, please, nobody expected the result that we got on Sunday. So as much as people are saying it's boring, none of us expected that to happen. So there's still something to dig into here, but let's go straight into the race recap. So we came into the weekend, as we always do, with 3 practice sessions, which were kind of all over the place. I think practice 1 we had the Ferraris in the top, practice 2 we had Norris, Leclerc, and then Sainz, and then practice 3 I can't remember, if I'm being honest, straight over my head. We just watched the fastest Formula 1 race in history. I think coming into qualifying, F1 expected the same result as always. We was expecting Lando, Piastri, blah, blah, blah. A lot of teams and a lot of drivers had to rely on their teammates to give them tolls to help them go fine. So with that being said, I don't think not Piastri got a toll, but I think Norris did. We're coming into qualifying now, and nobody expected Max Verstappen to be as quick as he was, because only last week he was complaining about how slow that car was. Now, he did say last week that he was going to get a new engine. So I think Red Bull had put in a new engine since the Dutch Grand Prix the week before. So it doesn't mean to say they're always going to go quicker if you get a new engine, but they got a new engine anyway, and clearly it paid off. We come out of the practice sessions now, we head into qualifying, which, as I said, F1 kind of expected the McLarens to like do a number here, because that's what they've been doing every single week. Nobody's been as quick as them. Until Max Verstappen pulls out a lap that nobody expected him to do, and F1 was like, oh, okay, this is why we're never going to count out the world champion. This is why I always say never ever count Max Verstappen out, because the minute that Red Bull give him that car that gives him that speed again, it's a wrap for every man that's behind. So the qualifying result went as follows. It was Max, Norris, Piastri, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton qualified 5th, but he received a 5-place grid penalty from the Dutch Grand Prix, which was just utter bullshit. But we moved 5th. He ended up taking 5 places and started 10th. The rest of the midfield is just as we expected it to be. It's the midfield, right? So weekend then, it was lights out and away we go. And that Max and Lando were going back and forth. I think there were several times where Norris, I think, maybe took P1, and then Max ended up having to take it back. But aside from that, that was probably the most drama that we had. Aside from that, I think we were this close to getting a yellow flag, which I was hoping for, but we didn't. So we didn't get that yellow flag because I think it was Ollie Behrman and Carlos Sainz that may have created one, but they basically didn't stall their engines, so they was able to get back on track, avoiding the yellow flag altogether, making it a bit boring, but here we are. Anyway, so heading towards the end of the race now, I think because it was the 43, don't quote me on this, I think it was a 43 lap race to do. The rules are you have to use 2 different compound tyres throughout the duration of the race. So I think McLaren's ended up going pretty much until lap mid-30s before they ended up going into the pits and they changed the tyres to softs. Now, the reason why I found this race interesting is because Max Verstappen in first place, and then you had the 2 McLarens behind. The 2 McLarens decided to go on to soft tyres, which in theory, considering they have the quickest car, they should have been able to catch up with Max. However, they weren't able to, which then finished the race with Max finishing first place, Piastri finishing in 3rd, and Norris in 2nd. They pitted Oscar first, and then they pitted Lando just after. However, when Lando came into the pits afterwards, whoever it was that was drilling the nut into the front rear wheel, they didn't do it properly. Long story short, McLaren basically bottled Lando's pit stop. I mean, the plan was for Lando to come in, and he'd come out in the exact same position he was before he went into the pits, right? Because there was enough time. However, because they delayed him in the pits, he came out seconds behind Piastri, meaning Piastri then took 2nd and then Norris took 3rd. Long story short, people were saying, well, what are they going to do here? That's a little bit unfair. Not to mention last week, obviously, Lando had his DNF. So what were McLaren going to do? Well, McLaren turn around and say, yeah, Oscar,
bit like Hungary last year, we pitted in this order for team reasons. Please let Lando pass, then you're free to race.
I mean, we said that a slow pit stop was part of racing, so I don't really get what's changed here. But if you really want to do it, then I'll do it.
As the weeks go on, I respect this driver more and more and more and more because he shows how mature he is for his age. But what stood out to me was that Lando is literally putting McLaren over everything, and McLaren are asking him to give the space back. He's going to give it back. A lot of fans are saying, oh, Lando's better than me, like I would never have given that position to Norris, yada 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 yada. He's thinking of the long game. He ain't stupid because he knows, well, first of all, before he entered into McLaren, that Oscar Piastri was this close into not getting into F1. He didn't have a seat when he had a legendary junior run, F4, F3, F2, no driver in history, and I think European champion at one point. So all four of those, no other driver in F1 history has ever won all of those championships before. The point is, Oscar Piastri, despite his talent, was very close to not getting into F1 until McLaren saved him. And he knows he needs McLaren because Lando Norris, as much as like people have their opinions of him, he is the more experienced driver, and he's got fewer years left at McLaren than Oscar does. Oscar knows in the next couple of years, this is going to be his team. He is going to be the senior driver. So he knows that for the time being, he's going to need to play the team game, because in the long term, which one would you rather do? Would you rather piss your team off in the early days when you know this is the team that have not only saved your ass, but this is also the team that's your future? Are you going to disobey them early on and create further rifts down the line, not just this year, but years to come? Or are you going to play the long game, do exactly what they say, whether you agree with it or not, let Lando Norris go forward, let him take the additional points and go from there? I respect him for doing that, and I understand why he ended up saying forget it and why he's putting the team first, because he's going to need the team a lot in the future, just as much as McLaren are going to need him. I also think that the reason why Oscar was probably just like, yeah, okay, let him go, is because he knows he's far ahead in the championship anyway. He knows he's 31 points ahead, so he knows it's like, yeah, like, respectfully, the championship's in my bag. If they were closer in terms of points, and let's say that 31 point was, let's say what it was last week, well, as we came into the weekend last week, let's say it was 9 points instead, I would be a lot more reluctant to give in that place, because no, 8 point difference, and you want to give it, no, I'm not giving away points, because every point at that point matters. However, now 31 points ahead, you can afford to lose some points. You can afford to like lose one or two on your teammate, because I think I did the maths last week, and I think Lando had to win 5 out of the next 9. Now, see, Max has won this one. However, Lando did get more points than Piastri in this race. But here we are. But Lando had to get helped by Oscar, not once but twice, because every time I watch a race, I'm always taking notes. I have literally pages and pages and pages of notes, just noting down what I've seen, what's happened, just so at the end of it I can review it and talk about it, right? In my notes for the qualifying, Lando Norris got a very, very helpful toll from Oscar Piastri, and I think that also contributed to him getting a quicker lap, because Piastri gave him the toll, allowing him to go quicker. So I'm not trying to say if Oscar didn't give him that toll, he wouldn't have got P2. However, I'm just saying that was a massive contribution. So not only did Oscar help Lando on the Saturday during the qualifying to help him qualify second, but he also helped him stay second. Piastri is nice. He's nice as hell, but at the same time, I know exactly he's thinking long game, because that's the only reason why you do something like that. And as I said, he's 31 points ahead, so it doesn't make a difference to him. Anyway, the other shock to the weekend was Max Verstappen, new engine for Red Bull. Not only did he win the race, but he won the race by 20 blood clot seconds. To be exact, it was 19 seconds. But to win the race I keep doing that. But to win the race by such a margin, I had flashbacks to 2022, 2023, 2024. Like, back in the day when Max was dominating, he used to win by 20, 30 seconds. Nobody was touching the man because he was gone. How big a 20-second margin is. That's extremely impressive. And I think now we are starting to see the resurrection of Red Bull. Clearly, Red Bull have stood up and said, "Now you ain't got the quickest car, my boy. Let me settle you down and remind you who's boss." Not next week, but the week after, we have Azerbaijan. We have Baku. I like saying Azerbaijan. It's fun. But not next week. The week after, we have Baku. And Baku is, in a sense, similar to Singapore, which I think I mentioned before. Baku is a street circuit. Which driver is going to have the bollocks to keep their foot on the throttle but also go around those tight turns at the same time? Charles Leclerc said in post-race interview that Baku, Singapore and Las Vegas are the 3 races that he thinks he could potentially get pole. He knew coming into the Italian Grand Prix that with the car that they've got, despite being Ferrari and despite them being quick, he didn't think they'd be able to take that top spot, which is fair. However, he has said in Baku, there's a great chance because that car favours that type of track more. I don't know the technicalities of it, but I'm going to take his word as Bible. Fine. Because if Charles is saying that's the racetrack that he thinks he can get pole, I want to see if it's going to happen. Okay? Ferrari have shown themselves several times this season that they have the speed to complete the McLaren with the McLarens. The question is, do they have the speed to chase down Max Verstappen? And my answer is, fuck no. I don't think anybody has the speed to reach up with Max Verstappen. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of people saying this weekend it was a boring race, which it really irritates me because, like, why is it that we don't see a red flag or you don't see a yellow flag and people are like, oh, it's such a boring race? Meanwhile, I'm watching it and I've got, like, Max Verstappen in P1. We've got Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris in 2nd and 3rd with soft tyres and Max is in 1st with hard tyres. I'm watching the screen like this. Because that's interesting to me. Because what's interesting is you've got the fastest car on the fastest tyres with another car who is the underdog, who has no business being that quick, considering a couple of weeks ago my man was finishing like 6th or whatever, but he's finishing 6th and whatever. Like, yeah, I'm locked in. That's the battle I'm trying to see. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, which you could kind of say is like the biggest bit of like physical drama that happened this weekend, and that was the situation with Carlos Sainz and Ollie Behrman. And I'm not going to say much, but if you go into Sky Sports, TikTok or Instagram right now, Nico Rosberg, please, Lord, you absolute God, please keep him as a pundit in Sky Sports F1, please. And he is class, asking the questions that the fans want. Not only is he asking the questions that the fans want, he ain't beating around the bush. Because I think normally with like F1 pundits and stuff, they're all very political. They're all like, oh, I don't know. Nico, I think when they were talking about the Carlos Sainz incident, I think they must have asked him about it, and he was like,
Carlos Sainz needs to get a penalty.
oh wow.
Oliver Behrman has half a car's length in there. I mean, half a car's length. It's not like he has just a front wing in there or something. That's a significant amount of car in there. Why doesn't Carlos Sainz just leave a bit of space? Like, give me a reason.
It shouldn't have been a 10-second penalty for Ollie Behrman at all, to be honest, because I don't know where he's meant to go. I think the incident could have been avoided, I think, for both of them. By Carlos.
We're getting there.
I was like, Nico, you know, I love you. Despite being a Lewis Hamilton, you know, I love you. Because you're asking the questions that people want. And the truth of the matter is, like, I don't know why the FIA decided to penalise Ollie Behrman instead of Carlos Sainz. But at the same time, it's not the first time we've seen the FIA make stupid decisions. There have been a number of questionable decisions coming from the FIA, which makes me think, like, are you man just bored? Like, do you just roll the dice in the office and just think, oh, whoever wins, that's the decision we're going to go with? Because that's the impression I'm getting with some of the decisions that are being made. Like, I'm seeing so many people saying, oh, why has this happened? Why has this happened? And I'm just here like, are we surprised at this point? Like, the FIA have been known for making dumb decisions, and they're also known for making very calculated decisions. But we move. Anyway, I've spoken a lot, but that's my 2 pence in the... Oh, the other thing I wanted to speak about very, very quickly, which was probably the biggest takeaway, I think, for me this weekend, even though Mercedes were quite quiet, George finished about... I'm trying to think about where he finished, I can't remember, but the situation with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli at Mercedes. Now, as it stands, both of them have still not signed another contract. So despite Toto Wolff coming out and saying, oh, I love both my drivers, I'm here for them. Okay, then, so why haven't they signed anything? At this point, I feel like we're doing a lot of this, we're not doing a lot of this. Okay, because why is it that during the summer, so let's reassess, because during the summer break, Toto Wolff, Susie Wolff, and Max Verstappen and his missus were all pictured several times on whoever's yacht it was. So during the summer break, Toto spent his time with Max Verstappen. Now, you then come back to the season and everything's fine. Yeah, I'm still here for my boys. My boys are still number one. I think Toto is keeping that door wide open for Max Verstappen. But I think Toto's waiting for the green light for Max Verstappen to say, yeah, okay, I'm going to come to Mercedes. And then he's going to drop George. That's why he hasn't signed George yet. But what's frustrating is that George is just acting like he's not doing anything about it. Not to say Toto's doing this, but Mercedes are very slowly pushing George Russell to a side, and he's not doing anything about it, considering he is one of those drivers that consecutively get into Q3, consecutively get into the top 5. Granted, like, he's not making as much noise because the attention's often on other places. However, George Russell needs to wake up, because as much as people are not talking about Max going to Mercedes anymore, I would not be surprised if, 1, that story comes back up again, or 2, it actually happens. And then what happens to George? George hasn't got anything and is left without a seat. And as I think about it right now, I can't think of another team that he can go to. I don't know where I'm looking. It looks well. Yeah, George Russell, you need to wake up, mate, because I think they're pushing you out. You're not even paying attention. At least be talking to other teams or something like that. But just remember I told you, because nobody's talking about it, and I'm like, Pierre Gasly's just signed a 7-year contract with Alpine, which makes sense because, well, he's their top boy and he has been for years. People are slowly starting to, like, sign the dotted line, but George, you ain't signing, boy. Everybody else in your age group has got a seat. You ain't. Next week there is no racing. I have a very special video, which is going to be the... I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to wait and see. But we are not back with racing next week, but we are back the following week with Azerbaijan, with Baku. Another street circuit. I love a street circuit. I love all street circuits except for Monaco, and I don't understand why Monaco's still in the calendar, by the way, which has just been extended till 2037, which I can't understand why. Why are we extending races like Monaco, which are boring as... God, I only watch Monaco because it looks cute. Like, if it didn't look cute and the, like, surrounding wasn't as aesthetically pleasing, I wouldn't be bloody well watching it, because it's boring. You can't overtake it. Your cars are so big, you can't overtake anymore. It's long. Anyway, we will be back. So what I will do is I will see you all next week. If you haven't already, make sure you like, comment and subscribe onto my YouTube. And if you haven't also, make sure you follow me on TikTok and on Instagram at Talking Throttle. Have a lovely week, guys, and I will see you again next week Tuesday. Bye.
Ciao bella, ciao bella, ciao, 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 stamattina